Hey everybody, it's Randy Ray at The Literate Texan, and I have another book review today for Shorty September. This book is called Immortality Inc. by Robert Sheckley. It's a science fiction novel. And let me see here. I thought the cover on this was really pretty. I'm sure this wasn't the original cover. This was actually written in 1959. And it's about a guy who's in a car wreck in 1959 and wakes up in the year 2110, and he's in somebody else's body. The premise of the book is that science has come up with a way to preserve someone's consciousness, someone's soul, and that they figured out the afterlife, at least in terms of consciousness, but not in terms of religion. And that's explained in some amount of detail. Science fiction from the 1950s did spend a lot of time explaining various concepts. In this particular story, it was originally published as The Time Killer in Galaxy Science Fiction, and it was nominated for the Hugo Award for Best Novel. So that would have been in the early days of the Hugos too. I'm not sure when they started awarding Hugo Awards, but I think it was in the 1950s. But at any rate, your main character is a guy named Thomas Blaine, and he wakes up in this different body, and there's a bunch of corporate rigmarole going on about how they grabbed him from the past and he was in a car wreck in the past, but they grabbed his soul and put it in a different body. And the world's a different place. It's in New York City, but of course there's the usual 1950s descriptions of what New York City looks like in the year 2100, and the architecture is very different. He, of course, has trouble integrating into society because none of his skills are particularly useful. He's a yacht designer and a yacht maker from the late 50s. And of course, by 2110, standards have changed dramatically in terms of how yachts are made. So he winds up getting a job as a hunter, which is explained in the book too. Basically, once someone has paid a certain amount of money to make sure that their consciousness lives on in the afterlife, they don't really worry too much about continuing to live because they know they're going to have this kind of eternal life anyway with their consciousness. So a lot of times they'll just I guess mostly for giggles, they hire hunters to kill them. And so he winds up a hunter, and you've got a reverse sort of the most dangerous game, but with multiple hunters chasing after a quarry. And if you know anything about storytelling, it doesn't take you long to figure out that even though he's a hunter and they're chasing after this quarry in the first part of the book, in the second half of the book, you're probably going to have him be the quarry and a bunch of people hunting him, which is exactly what happens. There's a romance, but it's a romance that's tinged with the attitudes of the late 1950s. It's a little bit creepy and weird, even creepier and weirder than I expected it to be from a book from the 1950s. Doesn't bother me much. It takes a lot to offend me, but it might offend someone else. I don't know. It was just old-fashioned. But it read a lot like a book from the 1950s, but it was pretty frenetic and pretty unpredictable. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of stuff that happens. For example, if they put a consciousness in a body but don't get it in there fast enough before the body starts to decompose, that body becomes a zombie. And the zombies, there's a community of zombies living in the sewers underneath New York City. One of the zombies becomes a sort of friend to our main character, Thomas Blaine. You also read about berserkers, who are people who just go berserk on the streets one day and try to kill as many people as they can until they get killed in return. There's talk of werewolves, there are poltergeists, there's a switchboard to the afterlife where they can leave messages for people who are still living out their corporeal existence. But, you can deliver messages back or talk to them. I thought that was a great opportunity for there to be a fraud, but that's not how it turned out. But all in all, it was a good book. I guess the movie Free Jack was based on it. I haven't seen Free Jack, but by all accounts, it's not particularly good. When I read about Free Jack online, it sounded like it was very loosely based on Immortality Inc. But all in all, if you want to while away 2-3 hours reading some enjoyable classic science fiction from the 1950s that you haven't read before, Immortality Inc.'s not a bad place to start. But science fiction from that period, it definitely has a specific flavor. And Immortality Inc. definitely has that. And I'm leaving out all kinds of stuff. I'm sure there's spoilers galore in my review. But anyway, I'm not generally a stars guy, but I gave it a 3-star. It was a good book, but not great. It was just a lot of fun. I haven't read anything else by Robert Sheckley. I might. I'm not opposed to it. But I'm also not rushing out to buy everything that he ever wrote either. But anyway, that is my Shorty September review of Immortality Inc. The next book I'm reading for Shorty September is A Wizard of Earthsea. And I promise to post a review of that too. But I got to finish the book first. Anyway, until then, take care, stay hydrated.